Welcome to the second episode of the Roll With It Baby podcast, the podcast where Waldorf and Statler riff, rant, and rave about the nonprofit sector, and yes, offer help as well, all against the backdrop of a hit 80s song. Hat tip, or should I say mullet tip, to Ann Rosenfield, who has coined our 80s band, Hair Supply. Love it. FYI, everyone, the Wall Street Journal has declared that the mullet is back. I'm Ephraim Gopin of 1832 Communications. With me is my co-pilot, T. Clay Buck of tcbfundraising.com. Clay, how you doing today?
You know, I'm good. How are you?
Doing okay. I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
Let's get into the song and see what happens to our mood. So before we...
It can only go up.
We hope.
We hope.
So before we dive into today's topic, a little bit about this episode's song. This is a song from 1982 by Charlene titled, I've Never Been to Me. Originally released in 1977, the song hit number 3 on the charts in the US in 82. For Charlene, this song was a one-hit wonder. I was first introduced to this song by you, Clay, who told me, and I quote, it has probably the worst lyrics of any song ever made. Pretty bold statement considering how many bad songs there are out there. So Clay, we're going to start with you. Why don't you give us the highlights, the lowlights of the song. Talk about the lyrics.
Okay, but you can't talk about the lyrics without the musicality of it, right? And people who don't know this song, if you know the movie Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, then you actually do know this song, right? The song, it makes me crazy. The song starts with one of the greatest openings of all songs at any time, because you get this breathy, like ephemeral, hey lady, you lady, right? And you're already like, oh my God, this is just trite and emotional. And
this is fantastic.
Right.
I'll take it.
I know, right? So yeah, so you have to kind of love, I'm sorry, the awfulness of this song. I remember this song playing on the radio constantly during the 80s. And then of course, Priscilla, Queen of the Desert comes out and brings it back. And anybody that had 80s nostalgia then was already, right, remember this terrible song. There's just something about the lyrics themselves that make me cuckoo bananas. And the message is good. I understand what we're saying, right? I've done all of these great things in the world, but I've never known who I am. It's an important message. But, you're a discontented mother and a regimented wife. Like, how contrived is that line? It's like, could we beat the metaphor even harder? There is so many things. I will tell you, there is one other song that makes me this crazy in the world, and that I think the lyrics are just as I feel like the two songs belong together in some sort of, right? This one is from the 2000s.
Yeah.
I don't know what year. You may not know it, but it's called Jar of Hearts.
Oh yes. No, this is another song you introduced me to that I have on my
I get so mad. You're gonna catch a cold from the ice inside your soul. Stop! Like, I love to hate these songs. Right. I love to hate these songs because they're kind of both of the same style, and they're just so contrived, and like the metaphor isn't even clever. I'm not a songwriter, but here I sit passing judgment. So
copywriting, you do messaging, you do communication, sure. You can read. Sure. I'm pretty sure you can read lyrics to a song and know if it's good or it sucks.
But people love these songs, just love these songs. And it just feels so, and I think the thing that I react to the most, and probably where it relates to fundraising, is it's so maudlin and heavy and contrived, and like it's trying to force some emotion from me. I took the hand of a preacher man and we made love in the sun, and I'm seeing the Harlequin romance and oh God, do you remember the 80s miniseries The Thornbirds?
Yes.
Oh, right, with just this like so soap operatic contrived, like
if you want,
I don't respond well to that.
The reason when you said Thornbirds, the first thing that came to my mind was, what's his name, Seth Meyers, who does a late night TV show. He has a running gag because he does his show now from his attic. He has a running gag behind him of the book, The Thornbirds, or it's a series. I don't know what it is, but it's something Thornbird, something like that. And it's a running gag how it appears sometimes behind him and how it doesn't. And then they changed the word, they changed the letters so it spells out something different every single time. I love it. He's driving us nuts.
I love it.
All I know is that the lyrics in this song, there's one line. When you introduced it to me, I first read the lyrics, then I listened to the song.
And I'm looking at the lyrics now.
Okay, There's a line in there. There's something. I've seen some things that a woman's not supposed to see. Is that accurate? Is that the line? Something like that? Hold on. Let's get it exactly right. Oh, no.
Let's get it right.
That a woman's not supposed to see.
I am pretty sure, I don't know why I'm having trouble finding it. Sorry to waste everybody's time. But I'm pretty sure. There it is.
Yeah.
I moved like Harlow in Monte Carlo and showed him what I've got. I've been undressed by kings, and I've seen some things that a woman ain't supposed to see.
That line alone, I think, is worth its weight in gold in terms of
Agreed.
badness, and just horrible.
Right. I moved like Harlow in Monte Carlo and showed him what I've got.
Anybody who's watching or listening to this, go Google the lyrics to "I've Never Been to Me." You will. Well, you know what? We'll let you judge.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. I mean, it's great. It's great. But it gets so, I don't even know what the right word is. It's just, it feels like, and always did feel like, it's so heavy-handed in trying to force me to feel something, you know.
She's done a lot with her life, but she hasn't done the things she wants to, or gone out and partied like she wanted to, or she could, or she's been chained up all her life, and yada, 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 yada.
You know, I never knew who I was. And I mean, the message itself is an important message. And I think a lot of people rallied around that message, especially at the time, you know, of I mean, this is it's a theme that gets repeated again and again and again. We can fill our lives with all of these great experiences and all of these things, but if we don't know who we are and accept ourselves and love ourselves, I mean, this is all very, very important. I feel like the message gets lost here because you're so busy making fun of these contrived metaphors and maudlin, overbearing lyrics that you start to laugh at it. I suppose that's kind of where it relates to fundraising, right? When we beat the message so heavy-handed with language that weighs it down and makes it almost laughable, right? We lose the import of what we're trying to say.
I was going to use the Yiddish word schmaltzy at some point. That was the word.
You did schmata on the last one, so schmaltzy is good here. I like it.
Each episode, I'm going to have to come up with a Yiddish word that starts with SH. It won't be that difficult, people. If you know Yiddish, there are plenty of those. So I'll tell you what I think when I see "I've never been." Just that line, forgetting the general lyrics. That line, "I've never been to me." So I was thinking about it a little bit. You know, non-profiteers are the hardest working, most dedicated people on the planet. They literally, I mean, we've both been there. They live, breathe, sleep the mission. You're trying to consider how to get more money to run more programs for what I call sometimes society's invisible people. You know, the people that many times are forgotten or left behind, and you're providing services for them. But on the other hand, being married to your job, that takes a toll. And I'd add, as you know, that non-profiteers are underpaid, overworked, underappreciated. You know, and that means that they don't have time for me. I've never been to me because I'm married to my work. We know about burnout rates in the sector. We know about fundraisers jumping ship every 18 months. So if I had to scream something, Houston sector leadership, we've got one hell of a big friggin' problem. Now, this podcast is not going to solve the entire sector's ills and problems, but on the other hand, I've never been to me says to me, you're married to the job and we ain't going to pay you well, and you're going to work overtime and you're not going to get paid for it. You're not going to get professional development and blah, 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 blah. And when we're done with you, we're going to kick you out and we're going to bring in the next one. And we're just going to recycle. That's how I think of it.
I think you're exactly right. And when you're in a position where everyone is second guessing you in the leadership and you're walking in, having listened to amazing podcasts that give great advice like this one.
No sarcasm whatsoever.
None at all, right? Because everybody is now still has an earworm if they know the song. Anyway, right? And you're reading all this stuff. I mean, this is the most exciting time to be in fundraising and nonprofit communications because we have actual data and science. We know far more now about why donors respond and what works and what doesn't work. And fundraisers are staying on top of this and they know the research, and you're walking in and leadership is shooting you down and saying, nope, you're absolutely not doing direct mail. Nope, you're not. Nope, you need to do another event, and it starts to develop. No matter how strong your self-confidence is, so many fundraisers start to develop imposter syndrome. So they're out there doing fundraising that they know could be better, but they're having to do it because that's what the job requires, walking around like Harlow in Monte Carlo at an event when they know they could be doing even more impactful stuff and suffering through that imposter syndrome of I'm not being me and I'm not being true to my values, which also contributes to the turnover in the sector.
Correct. If I have values, I have to subjugate them to whatever values or whatever culture is in the office, and I'm stuck with that. And it's very, how to put it, it's very hard. I want to be me, and it's very hard to be me in a situation where, again, and I think that, the overworked, I think, is in a lot of jobs, if not almost all jobs. We all know people who work on the weekends, even if they're not in nonprofits. The underpaid is my big, huge, that is my pet peeve about the sector. I've been there. We've both been there on the underpaid side. And again, I want to blame CEOs and EDs, but you know where the blame really lies? The boards. And I'm going to take this one step further. A lot of times, I think we've discussed this in the past, a lot of times on the board, there are business people sitting on that board, very successful business people. They know you spend a buck to make a buck. They know you need the best marketing, sales, team and everything else in order to make revenue and profit. And yet somehow, when it comes to nonprofits, suddenly they become, we don't have money to pay. And because you stop paying the best, what do you think is going to happen to those people? Fundraisers jump ship every 18 months, not just because they're tired and overworked, because they found another job that pays an extra $500 a month. That's it. So they're jumping ship. They're no longer married to the values. They're married to their bank account. And I can't blame them. You got to pay the mortgage. You got to put food on the table. You got to pay for all the stuff you got to pay for. I don't blame them. So the board has to, and the board never gets that blame. It's always the CEO or the executive director who takes the blame. You're not paying your employees enough. And the board gets off on these scot-free. And to me, they got to be taken to task.
In some ways, boards are responding to funders, right? Who we have history. It is starting to evolve and change, but boards are historically responding to funders who won't pay for overhead. So in order to make our bottom line look good, we as a board have to make sure that we're not overpaying for overhead, which theoretically attracts funding. Side note, who doesn't care about overhead? Individual donors.
Yep.
Which that's a whole other rant. Okay. All right. So fine. So we are now one more podcast, two more white cis dudes sitting around talking about problems with governance and boards don't, and blah, blah, blah. What's the solution? Right? Because what is the solution and what does this is the question that I think has to be asked again and again and again. And that anybody that's doling out advice or having conversation about it is, what can the frontline fundraiser that is feeling this and is suffering from imposter syndrome, what can they do? My answer to that is know your stuff, right? I honestly think that the fundraiser, whether the chief development officer or the development associate or wherever they fall on the spectrum, the best thing a frontline fundraiser can do that feels like they're being forced into fundraising that doesn't work, that they know could be better, or that is suffering from imposter syndrome, is read, research, learn, know. So that when somebody comes to you and says, direct response doesn't work, they can respond with the 20 studies that just came out in the last 3 months on what direct response is doing and go, nope, it actually has this kind of response rate and this kind of renewal rate, and these are the numbers and these are the facts and this is what we need to do. Because at the very least, you can be confident in your knowledge. Somebody else in a leadership or a governance position may decide that that does not work, or it doesn't work for them or whatever, and that's fine. At the end of the day, as an employee, our responsibility is to the organization, and yes, we sometimes have to quote unquote follow orders, but at the very least, I can stand in my confidence and go, I know that works, I know the research, I have experience that proves that it works, and they're wrong. At the very least, it gives us a strength to stand in and know our own worth and our confidence. Yeah.
So you've been to paradise. You've found the right data that works, and then you've been to you. But then the question is, who's listening to you? And I'm gonna. I
think you're stretching. I think you're stretching that one on the song, but I know what you're saying.
A little, but I'm gonna take this one step further because you and I both know how foundations work. And we all know foundations who have that cap of 15% overhead, they're not helping anything. Again, there's a power imbalance because the foundations have the money and nonprofits need the money. Here, I'll give you the current example. We've got going on right now where a lot of corporations are leaving or stopping to advertise on Facebook as a way of pressuring Facebook to make changes. They're doing the same with Twitter, YouTube, blah, blah, blah. Okay. The sector as a whole cannot stop taking money from foundations unless the foundations stop with the 15% overhead, although that'd be nice. On the other hand, I'm wondering who is out there that can advocate on behalf of the sector to the biggest foundations that, guys, there are programs where it's 90% overhead, but the amount of good you're doing in the community surpasses anything else that's getting done out there. But the fact is, it's all manpower. There's nothing you can do about it. I've had programs like that. And you know what I did? And I'm on a podcast, I'm gonna say it. You have to play with the budget that you give into the foundation and move the numbers around a little bit so that you can get the money, even though it's capped at 15 to 20% overhead. That's ridiculous. So I've already screamed at the CEO. I've screamed now at the boards. Now I'm going after foundations. Is there anybody out there who can tell foundations? And by the way, there was a big 3 or 5 of foundations who last year already said we're getting rid of that overhead, what do you call it? And we're hoping others will follow. But who's out there? Who's out there to advocate for the sector to foundations?
I do think that conversation is happening a lot more. And I do think there are leaders in the space and advocates in the space that are, and I'm hard pressed to sit here and tell you exactly who right now, but at program levels, at programmatic levels, at sort of governance levels and all of that are continuing to drive and have this conversation. There also becomes a bit of a point where we as nonprofits need to get we're so scared of funding. We're so scared of the money, and the whole exchange is a money issue. And if we stand up for what we know is right, we're not going to get the funding. So I don't want to say we fudge it, but you certainly do adjust your budget and move money around so that this thing over here, the gala, right? And this is why we're so addicted to galas, is because galas provide unrestricted income that helps mitigate all of this restricted income that doesn't cover overhead. So look, I'm not going to say that direct mail is going to replace your foundation funding. That's a pipe dream. But if we invested significantly more in individual giving and building relationships with donors and built that stream of community support to balance out this program funding and also be able to stand in our strength and say, hey, look, foundation, right? Because, okay, I'm 1,000 thoughts. Because the relationship is often so guarded, right? This foundation is accepting proposals We do a proposal, we get it in right before the deadline. We haven't had a conversation with that program officer. We haven't had a discussion with that foundation. We don't have a relationship there. We're just shotgunning out as many proposals as we can and hope that they renew, when really what you need is dialogue. Because I can tell you, almost every time that I have sat with a program officer and said, I understand where you come from on overhead, but the program that we offered is offered in our space by this expert. I have to pay rent and power and gas and supplies for the building, because if I don't have a building, I can't run the program. It's not like I can just do it in a public park, right? And this expert in this programmatic response, who is measuring results and dealing with this delivery, requires salary. So without those two things, I have no program. Even a foundation that says they won't fund overhead will work with you on that budget to how do you build this and how do you make it. I just, my point being, I think we can do a bit better of carrying that message forward, as without buildings, without people, the programs don't happen.
Well, I would say, having worked on the foundation side and having been a grant writer, so I was on both sides of the table, 100%, not even a question. It's about that dialogue and having that relationship, just like fundraising. Having that dialogue with the program officer at a foundation is no different than individual giving, and having a conversation with the donor and knowing who they are and having a relationship with them.
I don't know when grant writing got separated from fundraising. I feel like that happened in the last 10 years. That like grant writing became this other thing that isn't fundraising, but it is.
It is, but it became a specialty because, here, I'm going to tell you a story. When I interviewed for a job back in 2009, I think it was, I was in the second interview, and there was the CEO and an outside consultant, and the job relied heavily on grant writing. And they asked me point blank, do you have any grant writing experience? And I said no. So the outside consultant who was sitting there says, well, I've got two questions for you. One, do you know how to write? We have your writing samples. Do you know how to write? Number two, do you know how to follow instructions? And I said, yes. She said, good, you're a grant writer. Done. So there you go. That was my big course in becoming a grant writer. Two questions, I answered them both, and done. To me, it became a specialty, especially because if you know how to write the way the funder wants you to write, as it were, then it's easier, and I do this in quote marks, it's easier to get money out of the funder. And so
listen, grant writing is a very, very specialized specialty. And knowing the subtleties of not just how to structure the language, but how to deal with the grant application. And I mean, there's specialties that I don't even know, right, that go into grant writing. So the people that do specialize in it, I applaud and say, but I also feel the same way about direct response versus major gifts, foundation versus corporate, right? We do have very specialized area that require nuancing and knowledge and experience in order to do them really, really, really well. I got into the profession the same way. I could write. They made me write grants. I figured it out. I did a lot of study and a lot of learning and talked to professionals and specialists and got really good at it. It's not my specialty now, but at the same token, I do feel like somewhere along the line, grant writing got separated from fundraising and thought of as completely separate entities, particularly because they're budgeted differently, when the reality is so often fundraising and grant writing, program grant writing, are so tied together and require the same needs that I really strongly advocate for that, because anything that pushes fundraising further away, right, takes it out of where it needs to be.
Yes. So I will say this, having been a grant writer and a fundraiser and a CEO, and God knows how many other hats I've worn over the years over my balding head. Not that anybody else on the line right now is balding. But
have you been to Georgia and California and anywhere you could run?
Okay, so I've been to Georgia. Yes, I've been to Atlanta. I've been to California. I've been to San Diego, LA. Yeah. Where else? I've not gone.
Listen, I have no doubt that you dream about the things you'll never do, but I wish someone had talked to me like I want to talk to you.
Clay, come on. Those are beautiful lyrics. Do you not feel the love from Charlene? Look, I've never been to me, speaks about self-actualization. If we're looking at who's that, Piaget, Rousseau, one of those. I learned in psychology, whatever it was. I don't remember. It was years ago. It was 20. Holy crap! That was 28 years ago. My BA in psychology when I started studying that stuff. So who remembers? But anyway, self-actualization. Basically, I've never been to me. To me says you're married to the job. You're not necessarily happy. You're not doing some of the things you want to be doing. And you turn around like Charlene when you're in, I guess, from the song, she's in her mid-40s, early 50s, something like that. She's looking back at her life. I don't know how old, but hey, I'm in my late 40s. I can say it. You look back and you go, holy crap. I didn't, there are a lot of people who are just, they're bummed. They're bummed because they spent years not being able to do the things they want to do or that they knew they could do because of the framework that they were stuck in.
If you're in the fundraising profession and you're committed to it, or nonprofit or comms, right, wherever that falls, and you're committed to it, I think the point here is I don't want to get to the end of my career and look back and go, man, I could have raised some serious money, could have built some beautiful, incredible, life-changing relationships with donors. And I didn't because I got so bogged down in imposter syndrome and trying to be something that I wasn't, that I missed the boat for me. Hey, I'll be very honest, and I say this pretty frequently. I don't believe in pure altruism. I don't think anybody does anything, even donors, for pure altruism. There's always something in it for me. So it's a grand idea, and it is beautiful, and it is true, and it is why I work in the sector, right? That we work in these jobs because we believe in the mission, because we want to do something important. But at the end of the day, it is also about us, and we do it because it tells us something about ourselves. And honestly, the day I retire, and I'm sitting at a point now where I see that day, like there is a date set to it, and there is a finite timeline now, right? That I want to get to. I want to get to that day and be able to look back and go, I did the best work that I could with the best information that I had, with the best goals in mind. And I may have missed the mark sometimes, and I may have hit it other times, but I was always true to myself and to the profession and the work and the donor.
If you could do that when you retire, then you've done well through your lifetime. The question is how many people can turn around, especially in the nonprofit world, and be able to say all the things that you just said, look back and go, check, check, check. I don't know. Sadly, and I say it's a horrible feeling to be in a place where you don't feel appreciated. You don't feel like you're doing your best work. You feel like you're just punching your card every day, your time card, and you're going in and you're going out, and that's it. And it's not a good feeling. So
this is what we learned from Charlene. That's a horrible feeling when that feeling is coming from you.
Yep.
Right. So it's about, this is about, self-care and self-love and respecting yourself and doing the things professionally that you respect and like yourself for. And that's hard. That's hard.
On the other hand, worst lyrics of any song, and we're still able to find a beautiful lesson in them. So bless Charlene. Charlene's one-hit wonder, I've Never Been to Me, from 1982. You're going to end up listening to it at least once after this podcast, if not 2, 3, 4, 5 times, right? Yeah, he's nodding approval.
Yeah, and watch the clip from Priscilla, Queen of the Desert on YouTube. It's brilliant.
I love it. Sir, as always, it has been fun discussing the sector with you and fixing all that ails the sector within half an hour. It's
through the joy of 80s music. I mean, what brings people together more than,
80s food and 80s music. I didn't bring any food this time. I guess I'll have to bring
me either. I'm hydrating, but that's about it.
Yeah, okay. Well, you need to hydrate because it's like 2,000 degrees over there in Vegas?
We're having a little cool spell. It's 90 today.
Oh, very
lovely. It's lovely. No, it really is.
Stay indoors. My advice.
Right.
Yes.
Indeed.
Sir, as always,
brother.
We will talk in a couple of weeks again. Have a good day.
Can't wait.
All right. Take it easy, man.